Mrs. Hauptmann makes her way to the court, closely followed by Colonel Lindbergh, who was the first to give evidence. Hauptmann, haggard and worn, is brought from the cells. In picturesque tones, the clerk of the court summons all to order before the judge enters.
All manner of persons having business to do with this court to come, please.
Look at this scene. A courtroom so packed that there's not an inch of space available, while excited chatter and buzz fills the air. Members of the jury study a map of the district around the Lindbergh home, and at the end of each day's hearing, they are locked up for the night in their hotel.
Century continues at Flemington, New Jersey, with faces, grim faces, questioning faces, serious faces filling the courtroom. The court reporter and his assistants take down every word of the proceedings by machine. Press cables to world centers describe the grim-faced parade to court. Stern Colonel Schwarzkopf and Anne Lindbergh. Colonel Lindbergh, who believes Hauptmann the kidnapper. Betty Gow, the murdered baby's nurse. With the defense is anxious Mrs. Hauptmann, wife of the accused. And nervous Bruno Richard Hauptmann, the prisoner whose life is in the hands of the jury. Here they are, gray-haired Foreman Walton, Charles Snyder in gray suit, Ethel Stockton, Philip Hockenberry, Robert Cravat wearing eyeglasses, gray-haired Elmer Smith, George Voorhees, Mrs. May Brailsford also wearing glasses, followed by Liscombe Case and Howard Biggs. Faces, serious faces. Hauptmann talking things over with his wife. Edward J. Riley, Chief Defense Counsel. And Mrs. Ollie Watley on left with Betty Gow, all faced with the tragedy told by these baby garments of little Lindbergh. The first is the garment made by Betty Gow, the one she sewed. The second is the baby's shirt which he wore over the first garment on the night that he was kidnapped. And last but not least, the sleeping suit, identified as the one baby Lindbergh wore, which the prosecution contends is the one turned over by Hauptmann in return for the ransom. Again, Mrs. Lindbergh in the center of picture is reminded of that tragic night by the little thumb guard torn from the baby's suit. Hauptmann smiles defiantly as he leaves the courtroom. Is he guilty or not guilty? Artist's pictures. Comment by Arthur Brisbane. Words, words, and still more words of damning evidence, of doubt, of identification. Words that span oceans and continents, that interest the man on the street from New York to Timbuktu. More than 400 reporters cover the trial, turning out miles of copy to the tune of clicking keys. Walter Winchell, who was pointed out to Hauptmann. And Damon Runyon, known to millions. An endless stream of stories, headline news the world over. And now Adla Rogers St John sums up the highlights of the trial of a century.
This has been the greatest emotional trial that America has ever seen. In one courtroom, in a few short days, we've had the heartbreak of Anne Lindbergh, the tragedy of Lindy and his baby, the horror of Bruno Hauptmann as the possible greatest criminal of our age, and one of the most amazing mystery dramas with ladders and fingerprints and ransom notes that anyone has ever conceived.
New Jersey's brilliant 39-year-old Attorney General David T. Willents has presented the case to this jury of 8 men and 4 women,
who must find Hauptmann innocent or guilty.
This indictment charges Hauptmann with murder.
Now the state offers what it considers proof of Hauptmann's guilt.
What is the state's case?
1, the state contends that the Lindbergh baby was kidnapped at Hopewell, New Jersey on March 1st, 1932 and murdered.
Little Lindbergh, then 20 months old, was taken from his nursery that fateful day.
Anne Morrow Lindbergh, the heartbroken mother,
and Betty Gow, the baby's nurse, testified for the state.
2, the state contends that Bruno Richard Hauptmann came down this handmade ladder with the baby.
And the state contends that Hauptmann, a carpenter, constructed it.
That he is the man who used it the night of the kidnapping.
Making the noise, which was heard by Colonel Lindbergh, shown leaving the court after testifying.
3, the state contends that Hauptmann wrote the ransom notes.
The one left in the crib and the others.
That these notes are in his handwriting.
The array of state handwriting experts is headed by Albert S. Osborne, sitting in the center. Mr. J. Clark Sellers speaks.
The evidence is unmistakable. Mr. Hauptmann might just as well have signed each one of these ransom notes. So convincing to my mind is the proof that he did write them.
Dr. Schulhofer, born in Germany.
In my opinion, the fact is unmistakable that all 15 ransom notes were written by a man raised and educated in Germany. And that man is Bruno Richard Hauptmann.
That is the man. Accusing fingers pointed at Hauptmann as Supreme Court Justice Trenchard and the intently interested jury heard witness after witness. Here is the jury, the 12 men and women who hold Hauptmann's life in their hands. Study these faces: housewives, farmers, teachers, laborers, stenographers, a typical cross-section of American life. They alone must decide whether Hauptmann is innocent or guilty. This witness, Joseph Perrone, Bronx taxi driver who delivered the ransom note, looked directly at Hauptmann and said, "That is the man." This witness, Amandus Hochmuth, 87-year-old German, told his dramatic story. From his house near a lane leading to Lindbergh's home, he saw a car approach like this, speed around the corner and almost upset in a ditch. It stopped, the driver glared, and Hochmuth points out Hauptmann. That is the man. James C. Condon, who told how he paid the $50,000 ransom to John, looks searchingly about the court. Who is John? He looks directly at the accused. John is Bruno Richard Hauptmann. In a maze of his own contradictions, Bruno Richard Hauptmann was confused on the stand by the state's attack. But his attorney, Edward J. Riley, thinks the defense can save him.
Watch our witnesses. They will develop a perfect case for the defense.
What impression did Hauptmann's confusion make upon the jury, the men and women who hold his life in their hands? They were visibly impressed by the state's case as presented by prosecutor Willents.
New Jersey has rested its case, convinced that it has clearly established that the defendant Hauptmann came to the state of New Jersey on the night of March the 1st, 1932, with the ladder which he built, placed that ladder against the wall of the Lindbergh home and went into the Lindbergh home and murdered the child.
Let's have a nice smile. Nice smile.
Well, I guess that's enough Machendevenza, is it?
Just one more. All right. Okay, thanks very much. Thanks.
I couldn't help calling Mrs. Achenbach a liar when I heard her testify in court as she did.
The trial of Bruno Richard Hauptmann, which has focused the attention of the world for 32 days on the Lindbergh baby case, has ended, with the jury returning a verdict of guilty. These tense scenes, actually filmed inside the courthouse, show the concluding evidence in this gripping drama of real life. The jury has heard the evidence of Anne Lindbergh, the testimony of Colonel Lindbergh, and the story of the nurse, Betty Gavel. Now listen to the searching cross-examination.
When you took that money from that shoebox down into that garage, and you took those gold certificates and put them in a basket, one after another, 5, 10s, and 20s, whatever they were, you didn't count it, did you?
No.
And you left it laying in a basket all night and you didn't count it, did you? You left it another night and you didn't count it. That's right. And the reason you didn't count it was because you knew, didn't you?
I didn't know anything.
During the cross-examination, Hauptmann contradicts himself and is forced to admit that he lied.
When you were arrested with this Lindbergh ransom money, you had a $20 bill. Lindbergh ransom money, did they ask you what you got? Did they ask you?
You did.
Did you lie to them or did you tell them the truth? Did you lie to them or did you tell them the truth?
I said not the truth.
You lied, didn't you?
I did, yes.
So ends the great trial, with the verdict of murder in the first degree